Hi, this is Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show, and you're listening to the Red List News, where we are freeing America, one enslaved mind at a time. I read a lot of stuff that Paul Craig Roberts writes, and he seems to be the calm voice in the wilderness that is almost always correct. His experience in government, his experience in journalism and the forum that he approaches it at, has left him with a very unique perspective. And in this instance, Dr. Roberts and my interests have coincided. Our analysis has coincided. Dr. Roberts recently wrote an article in which he said the coup against Trump has failed. And he expresses concern that Trump is now prime bait for assassination. And I read with great interest his analysis, and I wholeheartedly agree. I've been writing the same things since Election Day. In fact, actually, I predicted if Trump were to win, these things would happen. And specifically, what Dr. Roberts and I are both talking about is Trump survived the recount effort. And given how much chicanery there was and voter fraud, it's amazing that the recount effort went away as easily as it did. Then Trump survived the George Soros attempt to bribe enough electors to deprive Donald Trump of 270 electoral votes and throwing the election into a huge constitutional crisis. Well, that's now failed. The third option that I've put on the table repeatedly, and I've taken a great deal of criticism for this, is the assassination card. And there really is nothing left. And Dr. Roberts has expressed exactly the same thing in an article he wrote yesterday. And I could not agree with him more. Of course, when I agree with him in this instance, I'm agreeing with myself, and that's kind of like preaching to the choir. But let me tell you why I think this has even taken a more ominous turn. I have been exploring for a number of years, and I'm going back 3 years, the presence of foreign troops in northern Colorado. One of them, the Gurkhas, and they are designed to be an anti-guerrilla force. And if we ever went into civil war, and the Obaministas were in charge, and our military, at least part of them, had to go rogue, they'd probably have to fight a guerrilla warfare. Well, there's been guerrilla warfare, anti-military strategist training in northern Colorado for at least 3 years. Eyewitnesses, people connected to Paul Martin. We have pictures. We've published them. It's covered widely on thecommonsenseshow.com, as well as other sites. Also, we know that Russian Spetsnaz are in the same area, as well as having trained with our soldiers against all common sense and reason at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs. And I've published several pictures of our troops together. And this came about as a result of a 2011 FEMA bilateral agreement that I have also published on thecommonsenseshow.com that was signed between the Russian Foreign Ministry and FEMA on behalf of President Barack Obama. This is sheer insanity because the Russians on how many occasions have threatened to nuke us over Syria? They're our enemy, yet we invite them into our backyard. It's because Obama's a traitor. It's the only explanation that makes absolutely any sense. But how does this play into the assassination card for Donald Trump? Well, I have to even go beyond what's going on in northern Colorado, and we have to go north to Wyoming. And now for the past 7 months, I've been inundated with information from people like Jill Wheatland and others, the Rollins area, the Laramie area of Wyoming. I've received pictures of private security contractors merging with foreign troops, training in the open. And I have published those pictures on more than one occasion. I've published the eyewitness accounts. I have named names. I don't know how to make it any more clear. And today I've been receiving information out of Utah involving the presence of Russian Spetsnaz. And if you don't know what that is, that's a highly specialized commando. They are often reputed to be the best and the most talented in the world at what they do. Why are we seeing all of this still going on with Donald Trump ascending to the presidency? Why haven't these military activities designed for urban warfare subjugation in mock towns on bases in Wyoming, why are they still practicing for this, as Paul Martin and I had reported on earlier this week? It doesn't make any sense now, does it? Because there's a new sheriff in town, a new commander-in-chief, and you would think that all of these kinds of radical operations would be put on hold. And then we go south into Texas, and something that I have beat my head against the wall trying to bring to the attention of the people, complete with BizOps, first-hand accounts, email accounts about UX16. And I've published some official documents on thecommonsenseshow.com. And what this drill is about, or has been about, is fighting a guerrilla war against rogue American military units who have defected, and there is a state of civil war going on. Why is this still being practiced with Trump coming into power? You know, the people are getting their president. I don't understand it. The military is not going to defect and fight on the side of Hillary Clinton now, are they? What did Hillary Clinton get? 10% of the military vote? And most of those are from the gangsters that enter the military to try to obtain citizenship. Oh yeah, I'm talking about the Sinaloas and the other cartel members. That's a well-established fact. So what are we looking at here? Why is there such a discrepancy between Trump coming in and the continuation of the practice to subjugate the American people? Well, I go back to what Paul Craig Roberts is saying and what I have been saying now for over 2 months. Trump's life is in grave danger. And if Trump goes away, how do you think the rest of us are going to respond if Barack Hussein Obama never leaves office, or if Paul the Rat Ryan, well, let's put it this way. If you don't swear in the president, Mike Pence doesn't become president in the event of a demise of Donald Trump, who would take over? Well, what have I been writing since January of 2016? Paul Ryan would take over, Speaker of the House. And by the way, did you know he filed paperwork to run for president in 2016? Something that made absolutely no sense. He's the plan B for the globalists. You start connecting these dots, and someone thinks that Donald Trump is not going to be president on January the 20th, and these drills designed to subjugate the American people, fight against rogue American military units in a dire situation involving guerrilla warfare, all of a sudden that makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? The only thing that really we can do as a public is to pray. Pray for Donald Trump's safety. This is really out of our hands at this point. We're coming up on Christmas. We've got less than a month to go before the inauguration. But my gut tells me there's something very, very serious in the wind. Excuse me. And a lot of us in the independent media, and I made the rounds today and I talked to a number of people, we all have this feeling of foreboding where we should have a feeling of anticipation and joy because of the great reforms that Trump is promising to keep. And by the way, he's already started. And don't give me, I don't like this guy he appointed or that guy he appointed. He's building a coalition. He's not building an army. He's building a coalition. He has to reach out to all kinds of people. But what has Trump done that I really appreciate? He's taken on the corporations head on. He's told them, you're going to stay here. Now, I'm going to give you some incentive to stay here, but you're going to serve America or you're not going to benefit from Americans. And we're talking, of course, about the dismantling of the free trade agreements. We're talking about the fact that he's going to rework the corporate tax structure in this country so it's not the highest in the world. And he hasn't even become president yet, and he's had an impact on corporations staying here. He told Google, Apple, and 9 other tech giants this week that you're going to start paying your fair share of taxes, and you're going to start showing some loyalty to the American people who got you your start. He's making amazing moves and having amazing progress, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet. I'm telling you, people, that you need to really take this seriously. I stand with Paul Craig Roberts and so many of my friends in the independent media. This ain't over. And we need to stand with this president, and we need to make it sure, make the public sure, and make the globalists absolutely convinced that we're not going to tolerate this. What they're planning to do to Trump, we are not going to tolerate it. They got away with it with John Kennedy, barely. They're not going to get away with it this time. And who are we fighting against? Well, that's a topic that I'm going to discuss in another broadcast shortly. Who's the real enemy? Whose toes are Trump? Who is he really stepping on? Who really wants him out of the way? The answer won't surprise those of you who have followed my work for a while. For those of you who've been in the movement for less than a couple of years, this may shock you, but when I start sending you back to quotes from the past, it'll all start to make sense. Well, that's it for the Red List News.